April 2026, China's Customs Office releases a number that barely makes global headlines, but inside factories from Stuttgart to Seoul, alarm bells start ringing. 25,000. That's how many industrial robots China exported in a single month, up 90% from last year. For the first quarter of 2026, China shipped 3.16 billion yuan worth of industrial robots overseas. Not toys, not clothes, not even phones. Robots, the kind that run car plants, warehouses, ports, and deep-sea research vessels. That same week, at the world's largest industrial fair in Hanover, Chinese robotics companies packed their booths, not as cheap knockoffs, as solutions, side by side with Siemens and KUKA. In Los Angeles, Dubai, Bangkok, and Warsaw, Chinese-made iron walkers are now moving goods that used to require human hands. This is not a story about low-cost labor. This is a story about what happens when a country that built the world's most demanding logistics system decides to export the machines that run it. 90% growth, it sounds like a freak month, but when you pull the thread, you find a structural shift that started 5 years ago. In 2022, Chinese companies held roughly 26% of global mobile robot export orders. By 2024, that climbed to 37%. By 2025, it passed 40%. And April 2026, a straight vertical leg up. But here is the detail almost every headline missed. The real driver is not the robot arm you see welding cars. It is mobile robots, AGVs, and AMRs. These are the ones without tracks or fixed paths. They navigate using digital maps, avoid obstacles, recharge themselves, and work 24/7. In a warehouse, they are the transport workers. On a factory floor, the component runners. At a port, the container shuttles. Within the total export basket, mobile robots performed particularly strongly. Behind this is both external market demand and the internal evolution of China's robotics capability. Externally, two demand waves collided at exactly the right moment. In Europe and North America, labor costs have gone vertical. E-commerce volumes keep rising. Warehouses that ran on human pickers 5 years ago are now desperate to automate. They don't want cheap robots, they want reliable, scalable systems. In Southeast Asia and the Middle East, the story is different. E-commerce is exploding, but logistics infrastructure is still catching up. Budgets are tighter, but the need is more urgent. Chinese robots with good enough performance at much lower prices fit perfectly. When mature markets face high labor costs and need better warehouse turnover, and emerging markets need to leapfrog automation entirely, Chinese mobile robots fill the structural gap. But here is Wu's key insight. This is not simple trade substitution. This is a transition from single product export to comprehensive output of technology, solutions, and services. Chinese robots are now defining how global supply chains are divided. In plain English, China is no longer selling robots. China is selling automation capability. You cannot understand Chinese robot competitiveness unless you understand what happens inside China during a Double 11 or 618 sale. Imagine a single warehouse that for 72 hours processes millions of packages, order density so high it would crash most Western warehouse management systems. That insane, brutal, high-stress environment is not a bug, it is the proving ground. Domestic scenario advantages are turning into technical competitiveness. China's super-scale, high-frequency e-commerce forces mobile robots to evolve in complex real-world conditions. You cannot replicate this in a lab. Economists call this the scenario dividend. You don't design robots in an air-conditioned office. You design them in the trenches of the world's most demanding logistics market. And while that happens, another force kicks in, the supply chain. Reducers, the precision joints that determine a robot's strength and precision, once came almost entirely from Japan and Europe. Over the past 5 years, China's reducer industry has grown from a handful of struggling startups to a 144 billion yuan sector. That scale brings down costs across the board. Take Longyu Automation. Most people have never heard of them. They hold the world record for heavy load AGV capacity, 600 tons. That's the weight of a fully loaded high-speed rail carriage. 10 years ago, this technology was completely European dominated. Chinese companies couldn't even bid. Now Longyu exports to 12 countries. The US alone accounts for nearly 30% of its exports. German and Japanese heavy-load AGV makers are losing bids in their own home markets. 2025 revenue grew 170% year on year. That's not survival, that is conquest. And then there is Deep and Far, also from Tianjin. Underwater robots, deep sea research, cable inspection, emergency rescue, the kind of high-margin, high-barrier field where European and American firms held a near-total monopoly for decades. Deep and Far now holds the world's largest market share. Its robots operate at 6,000 meters. Gross margins 70% plus. That is Apple-level profitability, not cheap China. Tianjin alone has built a robotics ecosystem of over 200 companies, annual output 25 billion yuan, 75% of it industrial robots, far above the national average. And Tianjin is just one corner of a three-city machine. When most people think of Chinese robots, they think Shenzhen, consumer gadgets, fast scale, aggressive pricing. That's real, but it is only one piece. China's robotics industry has evolved into three distinct clusters, each with a different strength and a different export story. Shenzhen, supply chain heaven. If you need a component tomorrow, you can find it within 50 kilometers. Focus, consumer and service robots. Cleaning, delivery, commercial service. Export strategy, volume, speed, cost. Shenzhen customs data. In the first 4 months of 2026, Shenzhen exported 4.03 billion yuan of robots, 25.5% of China's total. Shanghai, capital heavy, concept driven, home to humanoid robot startups and core R&D labs. Financial advantages are massive. Shanghai firms raise the most venture capital, but their industrial delivery track record is thinner. Many concepts still looking for a real-world job. Tianjin, the outlier. No hype, no humanoid robots, no consumer play, just brutally hard industrial problems, heavy load AGVs, underwater robotics, high precision sorting, explosion-proof emergency robots, long R&D cycles, high certification barriers, and once you break through, a nearly unassailable moat. Tianjin's top firms have built their own controllers, drive systems, motion algorithms, and safety dispatching systems, all in-house. Local parts self-sufficiency exceeds 85%. For the same heavy load equipment, a Tianjin AGV costs roughly 1/3 of a European equivalent with better customization response and faster on-site service. That is not cheap labor. That is a full-stack industrial machine that took 15 years to build. Together, Shenzhen, Shanghai, and Tianjin, plus the broader Yangtze River Delta, Pearl River Delta, and Beijing-Tianjin-Hebei clusters form a multi-layered export machine that no other country can match. 5 years ago, exporting a robot meant build it, box it, ship it, forget it. After sales was the distributor's problem. That model is dead. Chinese companies are shifting from single hardware to technology plus solution plus service output. They now provide full chain service, pre-sales diagnosis, solution design, post-operation maintenance. This is why export orders are growing fast. The old conversation, can your robot lift 200 kilo? Yes, contract signed. The new conversation, my warehouse is 3,000 square meters, shelves arranged like this, 5,000 SKUs, peak 10,000 orders a day. Can you design a complete automation system? That means Chinese engineers flying to Thailand, Mexico, or Poland for weeks of site surveys, customizing software, training local staff, setting up remote monitoring. In Southeast Asia, floors are often uneven, power unreliable, space is tight. You cannot just drop a standard robot and expect it to work. So Chinese teams rebuild the logic from the ground up. They are not selling a machine. They are selling a guarantee that your warehouse will run. Top Chinese robotics firms are building overseas warehouses, local after-sales teams, and attending international exhibitions. They are optimizing products for local market needs. Localization is the key word, establishing regional service centers, hiring local engineers, training local integrators. This is asset-heavy, slow, and expensive, but it transforms a transaction into a relationship. And it is precisely this shift that opened doors to high-end customers that used to be untouchable. German auto plants, American aerospace workshops, Japanese pharmaceutical warehouses. These customers do not care about price. They care that a robot failure does not shut down their entire production line. Once a Chinese company proves it can provide that reliability, the contract is often for years. If solution selling is version 2.0 of China's robotics go global, standard setting is version 3.0, and Chinese companies are already there. Standards are the ultimate form of industry power. Whoever writes the standard defines the track and sets the barrier to entry. Long Yu exclusively led the development of China's National Heavy Load AGV industry standard. They also participated in drafting national mandatory standards. Now those standards are being referenced overseas. Deep and Far led the revision of an international underwater robot standard, breaking a decades-long European and American monopoly. For the first time, a Chinese company sat at the head of the table. For years, made in China meant following rules written by others. Now, in heavy-load AGVs and underwater robots, Chinese companies are writing the rules. That is not a small change. This is not abstract. When you lead a standard revision, you influence what tests a robot must pass, what safety margins are required, even what vocabulary engineers use. Over time, this shifts the entire industry's center of gravity. At Hannover Messe 2026, Tianjin brought an entire pavilion, not concepts, production-ready industrial equipment. Deals were signed on the spot. European long-term partnerships were formed. This is not a single company's export surge. It is an entire industrial chain going global. But any honest documentary has to show the other side of the coin. First, the incumbents, ABB, Fanuc, Kuka, Yaskawa. These companies have been at this for 50 to 100 years. In high-precision assembly, microelectronics, and surgical robotics, their technology moats are still deep. European, American, Japanese, and Korean companies have deep brand equity and high-end technical patents. In high-precision and specialized robots, they still hold monopoly positions. Second, trade barriers. As Chinese robot exports grow, so do the walls. Tariffs, stricter certifications, security reviews targeting Chinese-made. For large companies, this is a manageable cost. For small and medium exporters, a single new certification requirement can add hundreds of thousands of dollars in expenses. Third, service reach. A robot breaks down in rural Poland. How fast can a Chinese technician get there? For most companies, the answer is not fast enough. Building a dense overseas service network takes years and hundreds of millions of dollars. Some Chinese leaders are doing it, many are not. Fourth, low price invol. In some overseas markets, Chinese companies are undercutting each other so aggressively that profits vanish. This damages not just the individual firm, but the entire Made in China brand. The industry must avoid homogeneous low-price competition and protect the brand premium of intelligent manufacturing in China. These are not fatal problems, but they are real, and they will determine which companies survive the next 5 years. Despite the challenges, nearly every analyst expects continued growth, though at a more moderate pace. Industrial robot exports will shift from explosive growth to long-term stable growth. Medium to high growth will continue. Short-term, replacement demand in mature markets and new construction in emerging markets continue. Long-term, as technology iterates and service capabilities improve, there is still room for market share growth. And then there is the next wave, artificial intelligence. Traditional robots follow pre-programmed paths. AI-powered robots see, feel, and decide. They can grasp randomly placed objects, adapt to new environments without reprogramming, collaborate with humans without safety cages. This is not science fiction. It is already rolling into factories. And in this new race, embodied intelligence, physical AI, the gap between China and the West is much smaller than it was in traditional industrial robotics. Shenzhen writes the code, Shanghai dreams the concepts, Tianjin builds the beasts, and a container ship carries them all to 148 countries. 10 years ago, China was the world's largest importer of industrial robots. 5 years ago, it started making its own. Last year, it became a net exporter for the first time. Today, 25,000 robots a month leave Chinese ports, not as curiosities, but as the backbone of global logistics and manufacturing. The Iron Walkers are not coming. They are already here, and they are rewriting what made in China means.